Welcome back, GRD 121, Computer Graphics, Fall 2020, to our apple pear football exercise. And we just made an apple, so now we're going to make a pear. And this should be easy. This should be the quickest one out of the three. And we're going to make a new page for it. So we're going to go here in our Pages area, and we're just going to click and add a new page, and we'll call it Pear. And we're going to make our pear. And don't worry, we can go back to our apple and take our stem and leaf if we want it. But let's build our pear. And this is real easy. So if you did this in CSE 103, we do a little exercise in there. This is really simple. We're going to go here and we're going to make an ellipse. And it's almost like building a snowman. We'll just kind of make a circle. And I'm going to do a drag copy this time and make a larger circle. So it's just like a two snowballed snowman kind of thing like that. Now it doesn't look like a pear yet, but it will. And if you want to align these, you could highlight them and use the align center. That will make them align this way. And if you did it pretty well, they should already be on center. Gravit has a lot of tools to help you kind of align things. Like if you hover over it, that's actually centered. You can see it's centered. So sometimes you don't have to worry about using the align tools to do that. It'll help you with that. And now that I have these two shapes, it doesn't look like a pear yet. I'm going to highlight them together, and I'm going to do convert to path. They're two ellipses right now, so I'm going to make them both to paths. And there'll be two paths now. And then I'm going to do the union. And it's still a compound shape of two paths. And no reason to keep them compound shape. If your pear looks okay, let's just make it one path. And you could even go here and just call it pear. It's the pear body, basically. And instead of tweaking all these things, the first thing you might do is go in here and be like, oh, I got to move this around and do all kinds of stuff. How about you just select that and you hit delete? Look at that. You hit that, you hit delete. Looks better already. And then click up here and just pull down on this handle a little, and then you get a nice smooth looking pear. Just almost straight down. And that's all you need. I mean, if you wanted to make a narrower pear, you could bring this in a little, like a Bosc pear, or I'm kind of doing a Bartlett, but maybe you want to do a Bosc pear, something. You could turn this a little, so you could tweak this all you want, make it a nice kind of shape here, but that looks kind of pear shape, and that's all I want. So that was pretty easy to do. That's probably the easiest part. The gradient's a little bit harder because we don't have a circular shape. We have kind of a bowling pin shape here, which is a little harder to deal with, but we'll try to do the same thing like we did with the apple. So I'm going to go in here to fill, and actually I could go to my pointer tool, and I'll click in here, and I'll go to radial gradient, and the inner part I'll make yellow, and the outer part I'll make green, and I'll make it again more of a natural green, a little less than it was. And I'll move this over and I'll try this. I'll see how it works out. I'll go here, I'll click on the end, and I'll try to put like a little red at the end. Now it won't look right yet. And I'll kind of lighten it a little bit. Let's see, maybe something like that a little bit. I'll lighten it a little bit. We'll see how it looks. Now it doesn't look quite right yet, but what I'm going to do is hover over here and move this whole thing kind of up here and do the same thing that I did with the apple. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit so I could see these handles here. And again, they're not the easiest thing to work with, but I'm going to kind of drag this down and make it bigger, like pull out on it, make it bigger. Go over here, pull out on it. So I just want it to the edge. That's all I want is something like that. And I'll kind of turn these handles a little bit. So I guess the trick is, and again, I'm not an expert with these things yet, but I think the trick is kind of keeping this on an L shape. Because now by just turning this whole thing that way, I have this little highlight in the bottom, which I actually like. I think that looks pretty good, and I'm not messing with anything over here. And they look like pearish kind of colors, so that looks pretty good, I think. And, you know, if you want to move the whole thing, I guess up a little, you could do that, and then kind of drag this back a little. So if you want to highlight a little more up here on the pear, you could do that. Now it's getting a little more red. Now, again, you might have to flip it around the other way, but I think that looks pretty good. I'm going to move this back and move that up like that. Well, actually, moving that seems to be creating a problem. So if you ever lose your gradient, just click on it again and just click in the color, and this little tool will come up. So I'll just move it over again. Okay, so that looks pretty good. I'm going to stop there. It seems like the more I mess with it, the worse it gets. So that looks pretty good. And then instead of making a new leaf and a new stem, I'm going to go to Apple, and I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to shift click on the stem, and then I'll just do a Command C on Mac or a Control C on Windows, and I'll go to Pear, and I'll just paste it in there, and I'll just move it up. And you don't have to make it exactly the same, so let me zoom in a little bit. And I'll move up here, I'll hold my space bar, and maybe I'll make my leaf a little bit different in color because it's a little bright on here. I could still put my stem to the very back, so I'll move it all the way to the back. It doesn't have to be the same. And I'll click on this color here, and I don't like the bright as much. Maybe I'll just move it, make it a little more pale. And over here, maybe just a little more darker. Maybe something like that. And so it doesn't look as much exactly like the apple one. I'll rotate it a little bit so it's down a little bit. And that looks okay. I think I already have the drop shadow on it. It kept the drop shadow. That's with the shape. So I don't have to do anything here. I can make this smaller. I could rotate my stem, you know, any direction that you want. If you want it kind of coming out like that, that looks okay. So there's my pear. So that's all I have to do. It's just kind of filling up a page here. You could highlight the whole thing. And actually what I'd recommend, if we're going to put these all together eventually, if you're happy with your pear, just group it. That way, if you ever needed to copy this and paste it and put it together with the apple, all your parts are together now. So now your leaf, your pear, your stem, they're all grouped together. They all move together. And it's very easy to ungroup them, but now they're all together. And you could even do that with your apple. You could go here and just highlight all of them and hit group. That way they'll all work together. And inside we still have the leaf, apple, and stem all together. So that's page 2, and that's my pear, and that's all I'm going to do here. So I'm going to stop this at part 2, and then for part 3, we're going to work on creating a football. It'll introduce some things we haven't quite done yet, and you'll actually see the importance of actually having a rectangle before converting it to path. So we're going to do that in part 3, and then we'll put these all together and have a wonderful fall cornucopia of an apple, pear, and a football all together in the same scene. Stay tuned for part 3 for that.